invited them to now subject themselves to the conciliation process, which is going to start immediately.
How can a private company, it is against the rules of KAA, that a private company cannot take over the operations of KAA in Kenya? But they are doing it. This is an illegality. This is a fraudulent takeover.
Of course, if our allegations are false, then the other parties have the right of response. They can deny and say that they are wrong, but so far nobody has said that.
A very good evening to you. Those were the scenes at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport here in Nairobi this morning as aviation workers downed their tools. So what we do know at the moment is that the Labour Court has temporarily suspended that strike by aviation workers pending the hearing of the dispute on Thursday morning, that is tomorrow. The workers downed their tools this morning, citing displeasure with the Board of Management over unfair staff hiring and compensation and the proposed takeover of Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. This is a conversation that a good number of Kenyans have been having. There are concerns that have also been raised about it. It's a conversation we're having this evening on The Big Story. It touches on the lives of Kenya and the future, indeed, of the aviation industry in the country. We'll be having this conversation with Babu Owino, who is the Embakasi East Member of Parliament. Is joining us from our City Centre studio. We'll also be speaking to Chris Diaz. Remember, he at some point worked with Kenya Airways during Titus Nakuni's time as marketing director. He has a pretty good knowledge of airline business models, but for the purposes of this conversation, he's speaking to us as the voice of East African Business Council. But for now, let me take you to our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, who is speaking to David Kosing. Kosing is the Transport Committee chairperson, and he has also raised concerns about this proposed merger. Sophia. So today we saw workers from the Kenya Airports Authority down their tools, and this saw paralysis of work and events at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, which impacted heavily on travelers. Of course, the CS transport had to go there. Action has been taken, we understand. In fact, he was detained, taken to court later on earlier in the afternoon. But aside from this strike, it's coming in the back of a conversation that has been ongoing, that proposed merger of Kenya Airways with JKIA, that Kenya Airways take over JKIA. It is a decision or a proposal that has not gone down well with many stakeholders. And with the issues emerging from that, a one-man's committee in the National Assembly has been charged with probing the issues arising. And that's my guest, David Kosing. Thank you so much for joining us, Chairman of the Transport Committee in the National Assembly. Let's begin with today. The strike by the workers from KAA, that paralyzed activities. And we have seen government officials come out to say this is unacceptable. This is a security entity in terms of a facility, that this should not have happened in any way. If you have to strike, stay home, don't come and disrupt activities. What's your position on this?
I want to agree with them 100%. And Sophie, is because airports are not normal places. Airport is a security installation. Airport is a transport institution. And by the way, I said this even in Parliament today, and I said, if there are places we need to refuse strike from happening, or we should not allow strike, is airports, health facilities, and security. 3. Let's do strikes in the rest, but not this one. Yeah. Can you imagine today, Sophie, suppose you're coming to this country, right? You're already on air, maybe 15 hours, but you're coming from Australia, right? You're coming back, and you're almost landing in Nairobi. Then you hear that you're not landing. And maybe even that plane has not enough fuel. So where will it go? It was serious. It is a mistake. Yeah. And in fact, and that's why we're saying, some of us are saying, we need to revisit the issue of unionism in this country. And particularly in those installations which I've said, airports, health and security. We should not allow.
Did we know this was going to happen? Was there a strike notice given? Because so there's all of this reaction and criticism against the strike, but it wasn't a surprise, was it? We knew it was coming, so it happened. Then why are we now turning back to say it shouldn't happen? Shouldn't something have been done to stop it in the first place?
You see, that's blackmail. Yeah, if, for example, then we say, because then there was something was going to happen, and therefore we should do, then that I'll call that on blackmail. You know, of course, it was illegalized by courts. So that aside, you know, we are now saying this is giving us an opportunity. Yes, behind the scenes, what you're saying is that they were saying we don't know what's going on with the merger. Yeah, that we hear that, but you know, I wanted to speak because we are leaders in this country, and we must separate those two issues, right, or tamper them. Yes. So in their issues, we told them, even today we said that the issue of merger or proposed merger, this is just a new proposal. Nothing has happened, right? Yes. Nothing has happened. But I think also the workers were raising some legitimate issues, which is that, number one, this merger or proposed merger has been shrouded in secrecy, you know, behind the doors and so on. Yes. I agree with them. You know, as a chair of this committee, I agree that this thing has been behind the doors. It's not actually on the table. And I blame KAA, I blame KQ, I also blame the ministry, because we should not shroud something that might be good going forward in secrecy. And even this committee, my committee, they denied us this report until last week. We were almost summoning them. And then they brought the report. So we told the workers that now Parliament is seized of the matter. And because it's seized of the matter, then your fears are going to be addressed, which is what? They were fearing maybe this merger will find them one morning jobless. Now we are telling them, you know, there will never be any marriage between KQ and KAA unless Parliament also gives a nod, because it involves amendments of several sections of relevant acts. So there's nothing that's going to happen outside there. It must come to Parliament.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the issues that have emerged around this proposed merger. Yes. One of them being KQ, for many times we've covered in the media, has been a loss-making company. JKIA has improved in the recent years, international standards. It's now direct flights because of the improvements. It's making profits. So how a loss-making profit takes over a profit-making, for many, it just does not add up. Does it to you?
That's a very good question, Sophie. And it's also among the Kenyans. Kenyans are asking, and I was going to say about three things that we are going to concentrate. But before I say that, Sophie, let me tell you also the truth. From where we sit as leaders and Parliament, we will look at this issue very objectively, right? We are not for KQ, we are not also for KA. We will remove ourselves from both institutions so that we are able to look at this proposal so objective. Number one, we need also to ask the people of Kenya, do we want to kill KQ? We don't want to kill KQ. KQ has 48% shares of government, which is our own shares, you and me, Sophia. So we can't allow it to die. Number two, KQ is carrying our flag internationally. So can we allow it to die? One, I will tell you this. I found pride one day when I was in school in 2006, 2007. I was doing my study in Bradford. And when I came to Heathrow, I was flying home. I saw the flag of KQ. I almost cried because of, the pride that, this is your country. Yeah. And this happens all over the world.
So then shouldn't KAA be the one, or rather JKIA, to take over KQ so it doesn't die, as opposed to the other way around? I'm coming there.
Yes. I'm coming there. Since this is two things, this is our own national installation as well, and also pride, then we should ask ourselves, and which we should agree, that KQ has been making losses. It is true. Yes. It's been bleeding. So once we now, and I think this is the best opportunity for the people of Kenya and ourselves to say KQ has for the first time agreed that please help me. I'm almost dying. So, but before we help it, before even we look at the proposal to KA, we should ask ourselves, where is it that is bleeding in KQ? And there are three things that we will look at as Parliament. Number one, we will look at wage bill of KQ. There is a question. Because if we need to help this child, we need first of all to treat. And we need to treat the veins that are bleeding. We must robustly interrogate the issue of wage bill in KQ. As I see it, that is an area of interest for us. Number two, we must also interrogate the fuel hedging. Of course, you people, and if you don't know, fuel hedging is an agreement. You say, let me agree at this price to buy the fuel forever or in this amount of time, whether the prices are low or whether the prices are up. That might be. I'm not saying it is, because now it is an inquiry. But we must look at that fuel hedging, whether it is something that is causing leakage. Number 3 is leasing of aircrafts. We need to see whether leasing, or even the format, the framework of ownership of aircrafts in KQ might be causing the leakage. Once we look at that now, then we come as a people of Kenya and ask ourselves, let's now look at the proposal objectively. So what are you proposing? You are proposing that maybe KAA, the resources between KAA and KQ should be merged together so that they can help each other. Then we'll ask ourselves, is this the only way that will help KQ, or there might be other proposals? And that's why my committee is retreating from tomorrow. We will study this proposal.
Yeah, because one of the other concerns, as you said, KQ private, so that we have shares in there as some Kenyans. Yes. But there's a concern around KLM also. Yes. An international airline. Yes. Also has, is it 40% ownership, if I'm not wrong? No. But they have a percentage. Yes. I may be wrong on that. So that I'll clarify. You'll clarify. So that if then they take over this, are we saying then JKIA is also owned, which is a government installation by an a foreign country?
Sophia, there's a lot of politics in this thing, right? And a lot of names, a lot of propaganda, yes. Including that one. That KLM is a big. Let me tell you, in the shareholding, 48% is government. Yeah. The Republic of Kenya, you and me, yes. That's our shares. 38% are local banks. That gives you significant percentage. So what remains is about 6%. 6% maybe is KLM, and maybe 2% will be maybe other private entities. So it's not true that KLM will take our country. But however, it is still private, because then government owns less than 50%. So, but as I said, those are the issues that we'll interrogate. And in fact, so that it can allow the people of Kenya to participate, we are retreating tomorrow. We will study the proposal. It just came to my committee on Tuesday last week. Right. And on Saturday, we'll announce the people of Kenya what is in this proposal. Okay. And then we allow the people of Kenya, we will advertise in newspapers next week for people of Kenya then to make also their contributions. And then after 1 week, we will now open this thing for serious debate. We must debate on this thing. Yeah.
This matter had gone before PIC, and one of the issues that emerged as they were canvassing it with the officials from KAA was the apparent conflict of interest, as has been highlighted, that you have the boss of KAA also being group CEO of banks associated with the president's family. So it's being seen as you said, there's a lot of politics in this. We've seen it playing out in that way. But is that a conflict you're going to be looking into as well?
Once we bring in Sophie, first of all, we want to understand what is this proposal. Because up to now, everything here is hearsay, paperwork, media, and rumors and politics. From Saturday this week, we will know the truth. And then once we know the truth, when we will be interrogating, when we will be bringing in KAA, for example, before my committee, we will look at those issues, right? We will look at those issues.
But let me ask you, as you say, you'll interrogate. There's one person who is the head of KAA. The same person is the head of two banks, CBA, NIC, that KQ owns billions of, or rather millions, I beg your pardon, of shillings to. So that there's that concern, just on the face of it, that this person is on this to you, as a leader representing the people, your people. Is that an issue?
Let me tell you that, as I said, once they come before my committee, we normally say, from where I sit, we normally say we don't anticipate debate. Okay. And I will be honest to you, when they come to my committee, one of the issues that will have to be addressed is that issue, because already it is in public domain. But I will also tell you, Sophie, who owns shares in KQ is a very fundamental question. The person who owns shares in KQ, we will now look at shareholding of KQ. At that level is when we will interrogate. Should there be any conflict of interest, we will address, Sophie, for the people of Kenya. We want to assure them. Right. Should there be? And of course, they must also be, even now they're aware, because the report is in my committee. Even KA and leadership are aware that they are on the way coming to my committee. I am not going to do this thing inside the closed doors. It will be in public. They will come before the committee and say what is their role and what is their role in both KA and KQ. They will come.
There was a debate going on, and I saw somebody ask a question, and they were saying, I don't understand this whole debate on KQ and taking over JKIA, but is it the same as an individual X saying, I want to take over Treasury, because KQ private entity, JKIA government entity, and they're like, how does that work out?
You see, but it's a proposal. Right. So it's a
The
proposal.
fact that it's a proposal,
Yes.
and one that even the chief of staff
Yes.
of the president is on record saying there is no turning back on this. So the seriousness and the push on government to take this forward is very serious. They're saying we're going forward.
I'll tell you this, Sophie. Now, when you bring in maybe chief of staff or whatever, assistant chief of staff or something like that, that's not arise in my committee. You know the reason? The reason being I don't listen to newspapers. I don't. Sometimes I read, sometimes I don't. But I'll tell you this. You know the reason why when people talk like that, if they talk to you, they didn't talk to me. And if they want, I will publish. We will invite Kenyans to make comments. So if they want, they can also make comment that time that there's no turning back. But I'll tell you this. You know there is a catch-22 situation, right? That this thing will come to Parliament, like it or don't. Because let's say, for example, let us assume that now there's a marriage between KQ and KA. There will be a raft of legislative proposals that must be amended for that marriage to become legal. Then it must be. For example, if you are looking at the resources coming to KA, right? Resources coming to KA are public resources. It comes from, you and me as tax. It goes to KRA, and then from KRA to KA. That regime must be amended, and it has to come to the floor of the House. So you cannot say there's no turning back. Okay. How do you turn back? It will come to the House of the people. So and that is why, Sophia, it is very critical and fundamental. I am against those people who say that let us not bring Parliament. Oh, this is only a proposal. Let's wait until when it is something, then we can talk. It is not true, because we better move together. So that, for example, once when the executive is moving, Parliament is moving, it requires serious proposals, and that is what I'm saying. For those people who talk outside there, they do not know. What about if you say like that, and then you bring amendment to Parliament? So what happens? It will come to my committee. All right. Yes.
Finally, the matter is now seized of your committee. Yes. How long will it take until there is a result or report in as far as what you have found following the sittings and deliberations you will have? I
will say maximum 3 weeks. Okay. And this is the procedure or the timetable. By Saturday this week, we will have concluded ourselves as committee looking at what is it this proposal, because nobody has seen it. Yes. So I brought in experts. Parliament has brought in experts that will take us through the proposal. Saturday we'll finish. Next week we will then invite the people of Kenya to make comments. Yes, we want to hear those things you are raising, Sophia, and when they raise that way, through a memorandum to the clerk, and from memorandum to the clerk to ourselves, to the committee. And then that is now, after 1 week, we'll give them 1 week. So after 1 week, those proposals will come. Then we'll sit down maybe 2 days to analyze the proposals. From there now, we can decide either to do an open 2-3 days in County Hall, or invite them publicly to present those views before the committee. Once we do that, then we'll have almost a week. So 1 week of advertisement, the other week for listening, the third week for compiling this report, and we'll present to Parliament. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate the time that you made for us. We'll be watching and covering to see how all that plays out. Honorable Kosing speaking with us. He's the chairperson of the Transport Committee. And Linda, as I bring it back to you, they say ahead of a proposed marriage, when it's announced in church, those who have issues to raise their hands. On this particular proposal of merger, several hands have been raised. So we'll wait to see if, at the end of the day, the vows will be taken or the relationship will die. Back to you.
Yeah, if there's anyone who has any reason why this union should not take place, please raise your hand. Yeah, so Kosing is saying basically Kenyans will get the chance to be able to raise their hands and give their opinion on the proposed merger that we're talking about. You're having this conversation this evening on The Big Story with Babu Owino, who's the Embakasi East Member of Parliament. We also have Chris Diaz, and his voice is coming in as a representative of the East African Business Council. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on The Big Story this evening. Mheshimiwa Owino, let me begin with you. Let's talk about this proposal that everyone seems to think, actually a good number of people say they've not seen it. It's shrouded in secrecy. You are at the airport today and you are agitated, saying this should not be allowed to happen. Give me your thoughts on the proposed merger and the way this whole process is being carried out.
Thank you, Linda. I think this is not a merger, this is a takeover. I'm a member of Public Investment Committee, and we've been investigating this matter. We summoned the CEO for Kenya Airports Authority, Mr. Johnny Anderson. He told us clearly that he's a man under siege. There's a letter which was written to him from both the KQ management and the ministry, demanding that he hands over KAA to KQ. First, KQ is a loss-making company. The books of account, as we checked, they've been making losses for the longest time possible. Now, KAA is a public-owned company by the government, which has been making profits. You can't purport to say that a company that makes losses wants to take over a company that makes profits. Does not make sense. Secondly, KQ owes KAA around 3.9 billion Kenya shillings. A company that owes you money cannot take over you, cannot take over the operations of your business. It is the other way around. It is KAA that should take over KQ. We are also very much aware that KLM is behind all this. I've seen Mheshimiwa Kosing talking that Kenyans own 48% of KQ. That's a lie. KLM owns the largest percentage of shares in KQ. Therefore, they are the people who are controlling the puppet. KQ is like a puppet, a marionette, being controlled by KLM. Therefore, it is a private company which is coming to take over a public company in Kenya. According to the KAA statutes, according to the act of the KAA, the statute is clear that a private company cannot take over the operations of a public company. Now, whatever is happening, I think, is an illegality, as we can see it clearly. So the CEO is a man under siege. As a member of parliament, will not allow my workers to lose jobs at JKI.
Okay, I know you raised the concern about your workers. You don't want your workers to lose their jobs. When you say the CEO is a man under siege, where was the letter from?
The letter that it was written, there were two letters. One letter came from the Cabinet Secretary Macharia dictating that he should hand over KAA to KQ. Another letter came from the management of Kenya Airways, also telling commanding him that he should hand over KAA to KQ.
Wow, all right. Let's bring in Mr. Diaz. Sir, give me your thoughts about this whole conversation about the merger and what you're hearing from both sides.
Thank you very much, Linda. First, it's a pleasure to be here on studio. My point here strongly is that, first and foremost, both the organizations in terms of Kenya Airports Authority and JKIA with Kenya Airways, these are very big organizations that are heavily integrated with the economy and the business of Kenya. Now, from a private sector perspective, you look at thousands of companies moving cargo and moving passengers, moving investors, bringing investors into Kenya. You also got to look at number of tourists, members of the East Africa Business Council, a lot of the hotels, a lot of the tourist organizations, creating employment. There's a lot of employment around these two organizations. The private sector is very concerned, and it would like to see a successful model rollout that will enable Jomo Kenyatta and Nairobi, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and Nairobi, to be one of the best and, in fact, the biggest hub in Africa, which connects Africa to the rest of the world. So it's critical for us as private sector. Private sector contributes to 80% of the GDP and drives the economy of Kenya. So all the private companies which are creating employment would like to see more employment, would like to see Kenya progress, and would like to find solutions. And it's critical that the staff and the people of Kenya Airports Authority and Kenya Airways are motivated so that they can give excellence to their customers. And this is critical, that instead of us having all this misunderstanding, we should find this solution quickly where we have stakeholder engagements. The private sector must be involved with guiding and contributing to the adding value to see how these two organizations can work as one system, but are credible, have authority, and also accountable, so that there is a great value to the economy of Kenya. But Linda, the most important point here is we must take care of these two organizations, because they are enablers for investors to increase tourism, to increase billions of dollars, and mostly they're great employers, and to create employment with the private sector to give the many Kenyan youth jobs that is critical for growth and revenue earning in Kenya.
You have worked with Kenya Airways for a while. The model that is being proposed, do you think it will work? Because the argument is that we cannot allow Kenya Airways to simply die. We have to find a way of breathing life into it, the model that is being proposed.
If you look at first, to answer that question, and it's a good question, because let's look at best practice. If you look at Emirates, you look at Ethiopian Airlines. Today, Ethiopian Airlines and Emirates, they are 100% government owned. So their setup is, they work as one system with the fuelers, the caterers, the airports authority, and the airlines. And it is critical that we have events and meetings. And I also agree with all the other stakeholders. We need both the transport committee, we need all the stakeholders. We need the Kenyans to speak, to understand this integration, so that there is no secrecy. People should be comfortable that this is the best for Kenyans, it's the best for the economy. So I really think that we need to look at the proposal, we need to understand it in depth, it must not be a secret, and we must add value by having all stakeholders contribute so that we can make it even stronger and more robust. And we have to work together as one system, because all the players contribute to the development of the aviation sector, to the transport sector, and also connects Kenya to the rest of the world.
Mheshimiwa Owino, have you looked at this proposal?
Linda, first of all, that man should know clearly that Ethiopian Airlines is fully owned by the government. KQ is not owned by the government. It's a private company. So that man is a thief. He's part of the larger scheme.
Babu?
The man you are with at the studio.
Mheshimiwa, no. I will not allow you to hurl insults at a guest on air. Mheshimiwa, no.
You should not mislead Kenyans. You should not mislead Kenyans.
Mheshimiwa,
why did you call me if you're saying no? No,
because I will not allow you to hurl insults at a fellow panelist.
There is no insults. Whatever he's saying are lies. If you want me to get out of the studio, you can
please
take
do.
your stuff.
If you cannot be civil, Mheshimiwa, I'd rather you do. Because you cannot insult a fellow panelist.